Thanks for coming on the show. Just for those who may not know, I want you to just start off, introduce yourself and tell people who you are.
Sure. Brian Trippe. I'm in Birmingham, Alabama. I've been doing real estate since 2012, and I've really kind of done it all. Got my start in wholesaling back in 2012, did my first deal. It took me 45 days from the day I learned what wholesaling was till I got my first check. It was a $10,000 check. It changed my life. Not the money. The money didn't change my life, but it changed my thinking. It changed
Yeah.
my attitude. It changed my perception about just being wealthy, about money in general. And it really just kind of set me off on this trajectory of being involved in real estate, ever since. So that's, going on 13 years. And it's been an interesting ride. And I've had a lot of ups, a lot of downs, and everything in between. And real estate kind of saved my life. And I kind of owe everything I have to it. So, but I don't know what we're talking about today. We can talk. I can go in pretty much any direction. So I'm glad to be here, Travis. Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome, man. That's such a blessing, just the fact that it changed your life like that, that one check. Since 2016, so much has changed in the wholesaling world. I mean, the tools, it's just so much easier now. So let's go back, 2000, let's take it back. What was it like for you just getting started and what resources did you have?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's a great question. It's completely different now.
Yeah.
So I got my first deal by just literally getting on Craigslist and cold calling, cold texting, cold emailing. Really, you'd hit the little email button and just, hey, is your house still for sale? That kind of thing. And I didn't really know what I was doing. As a mentor of ours, a mutual friend of ours, Tom Kroll used to say, you don't have to be perfect, right? It's really just fail forward, and that's really what it was. I made every mistake possible on Craigslist, just contacting seller after seller after seller. I didn't know what a good deal was, but I think for me, what clicked and what made me end up being successful at real estate was the fact that I had so many conversations.
Yeah.
I started talking to everybody, getting on the phone. I didn't even know what I was talking about. But the more you would talk and the more you'd listen, and then, oh, they said something, I want to go look that up. What is that? The more you kind of do that, the more you talk and the more you listen, the more people you talk to, the more you just kind of, you kind of find your way, and I'd only done one real estate deal ever. Well, deal. It was my buying my own personal home. I had done that maybe 6 months prior to doing my first investing deal, my first wholesale deal. So I didn't know what a closing attorney was really. I knew one guy, and that was the guy that closed our home. And I was like, hey, I've got this seller. They got this house. I've got it under contract. I've got a buyer. He wants to buy it for 10,000 more than I've got it under contract for. I've got two separate contracts here. Can you help me? And he's like, what? What are you doing? He never heard of wholesaling. So I'm like, well, and I showed him a couple of things I'd seen online on the internet. And I said, well, can you do that? Do you think you can do that? And he was like, maybe. So he goes to like another attorney partner of his in the title company. And he was like, yeah, I think we can do this. And I didn't know what was going on. He's come in here and sign a couple things. So I signed a couple things. I had no idea what I was doing. And apparently they had talked to the seller, they had talked to the buyer. I wasn't present. And all I knew is I had a check for $10,000.
Yeah.
And the attorneys were like, look, we've never heard of this before, but we kind of were doing a little bit of research and it looks legit. And show us how you did this. This is pretty awesome. So I'm like sitting here teaching and trying to teach what wholesaling is to the people who are supposed to be closing the transaction. I just did everything wrong. But at the end of the day, I kind of failed forward, made, made that little chunk of money. I was able to take that money. I ended up buying some leads, buying, a list, and it just kind of ended up going from there. I did a lot. I don't know, cold call. I wasn't doing a lot of cold calling, but I was doing a lot of door knocking at that
Yeah.
time. Before door knocking kind of got a little, kind of weird. A lot of people don't answer the door anymore,
Yeah.
but I was doing a lot of door knocking, a lot of driving around looking for ugly houses and a lot of bandit signs. That's one of the first things I bought is I spent like 250 or $300 on just blank corrugated signs. and just Sharpie, those big fat Sharpies, and just wrote on them. And I remember buying, I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but I bought what was called a sign stapler.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if you can buy them anymore, but you like put the little plastic signs in this little holster, and there's a staple gun at the top of it, and it allows you to lift it way up high and get these bandit signs up on telephone poles. In the heyday, I mean, I was hanging 150 signs every single Friday night on my own, just doing it by myself. And by then, I was getting them printed up and had them real nice. I had an awesome phone number, 765-2222. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really easy for people to kind of see it. Getting so many leads off bandit signs. So yeah, you're right. Going back to your initial question, so much has changed. It's so much easier now.
Yeah.
DealMachine, David Lecko created DealMachine, and that's you can drive for dollars virtually just by Google mapping it through his software. And there's the cold calling stuff, the Brent Daniels stuff. I mean, there's so much stuff that's changed versus me doing it, and a lot of folks that kind of did it even way before me, just kind of grassroots and just kind of did everything they could do just to get a deal done.
Yeah, man. That sounds like you're the definition of progress, not perfection, you
There
know?
you go. It is
Um,
for sure.
yeah, man. So are you still, I mean, I'm sure you're still, very active, right? Are you still wholesaling?
Um, I would say I'm not very active.
Okay.
You know, so long story short, in I was wholesaling pretty heavily through about 2018. I ended up starting a local real estate club. I have a master's in education. I used to coach. I was used to be a Division I college basketball coach, and
Oh,
this was
wow.
kind of like my background. I didn't make a lot of money. As a low level assistant, you don't make a lot of money. But so real estate kind of it helped me kind of get out of that grind, get out of that rut, I guess. But I had that coaching and teaching background and that kind of educational background, and I got involved. I started a local REIA, and one thing kind of led to another. I really enjoyed it. I really loved, doing podcasts. I've had my podcast for a very long time, our
Yeah.
real estate channel for a really long time on YouTube. And I just really started to fall in love with that. And I used to say, I love real estate, but I really didn't love doing like the deals and stuff. I mean, I enjoy it to an extent. I enjoy
Yeah.
helping people with it way more than I enjoy actually doing it,
Yeah.
and helping kind of point them in the right direction, this resource, this person, you talk to them. So I just started interviewing people, and jumped on some stuff like this Zoom, and did in-person interviews, and started the RIA. The RIA was going very strong. I mean, we're averaging 250 to 300 people up until COVID shut us down in 2020. And then, after that, I was kind of out of it for a little bit, and then just recently kind of got back into it. And so, to answer your question, I'm not really. I'm doing a couple of deals here and there, but it's not
Okay.
my passion. It's not what I love. I really enjoy this part of it,
Yeah.
kind of the education side of it. Although I'm not really mentoring people. I used to coach and mentor. I don't really do that anymore because I'm not doing it every day. I feel like that's kind of phony. I don't want to do that. But I love the podcast. I love talking to people, interviewing people. I love hosting the meetups and hosting the groups and getting people involved, and just building the community and kind of being the person behind the community, if that makes sense. I just love that aspect of it.
Yeah, man. Just from watching you over the years, I could sense that about you, even though I didn't know you. And I remember one of the first videos I watched of you was you and Brent Daniels. It was probably 5 years ago. And it was pretty much based, the whole concept of the video was about networking and how powerful you are at networking. Could you talk to me a little bit about, your network and building it and the process and what it means to you?
Well, it's everything. When you start getting down to it, even the first story I just told you about doing my first deal, I didn't have a real estate attorney. I
Yeah.
didn't have a title company. I mean, just from that standpoint alone, being involved in real estate, it took me a lot of trial and error until I found like a really good title company that can
Yeah.
do, anything. They can do all the different types of transactions that I would need them to do as an investor. And what if someone were to come into my community or our community that we've built here in Birmingham, and I can just say, hey, you know what? I did all the trial and error for you. Here's the title company that you need to use for that specific transaction. They're the best at it. So just being able to be plugged in to a group of people who can help you move forward on your journey and help you kind of maybe not make all the mistakes, but just kind of take those steps as it's not like one step forward, two steps back kind of thing, because you're constantly trying new things. It's like, hey, here's the pathway. We already paved it for you. Here are the steps. Go ahead and take these steps. I think having that community is huge. So how do you do it? How do you have a big network? It's really just by very simply giving more than receiving. And if you could just, I heard this from Gary Vaynerchuk a decade ago. If you can just be 51% of every relationship that you're in, that's going to create this thing called reciprocity. You do something for someone and they're going to want to do something back in return
Sure.
for you. And not that we want to, I don't go and do things for people because I want them to do something back for me. It's just really just who I am.
Yeah.
It's an innate part of who I've become in this real estate world. But when you do that, well, it's just I think it's just a better way to live first and
Yeah.
foremost. But B, it's really doing it without the expectation. When you start doing things without expecting things back in return, you can be free to just give and not have to worry. I remember it was in 2019 where I spoke in 25 different cities that year. Okay. Literally 25 different cities.
Wow.
I was in Phoenix. Speaking of Brent Daniels, I was in Phoenix, and that's probably when we recorded that interview. I
Yeah.
remember what interview you're talking about. We were in his office,
Yep.
and he was asking me questions about networking. That's when I recorded that interview. It would have been 2019, that summer. Well, I was in Phoenix. I was speaking at the RIA there that was run by my good friend Andy Werner, and I give this whole talk on networking, how to grow your network, and how to be an incredibly successful real estate entrepreneur by building a big network. Well, there was this lady there, and it was at the end of the talk. I was taking Q&A, and this lady just asked. She was in tears, and I'll never forget this. Is just the way she was describing how she's constantly giving. She's always the one giving, and she feels like she gets trampled on. Like she feels like just people take advantage of her, and she's just crying. It's all I do is give, and no one ever offers anything for me. And so I listened to her, and I was trying to be empathetic and trying to put myself in her shoes. And it really just kind of thought kind of hit me because she made a really good point. A lot of times, I'll put myself out there. I don't get anything back in return. But what I told her is, for you to be feeling the way you're feeling right now, it's obvious it's because you were expecting someone to do something back in return for you.
Yeah.
And again, like I said a second ago, the ultimate freedom is to be able to do things freely for other people without that expectation and without the pressure, without needing something. Because now all of a sudden it becomes manipulative. Like if I'm going to do something for someone only so they'll do something back in return for me, that's kind of manipulative to me.
Yeah.
That's not really a good way to do business, in my opinion. So to sum up your question about networking, it's really just being 51% of every relationship you're in. Give more than you receive. Now, the natural laws of reciprocity, where you give something, so studies have shown, there's this great book called Influence. It's written
Yes.
by Robert Cialdini. It's a really dry book. It's a hard book to read because it's just filled with study after study after study. It's more of a scientific type of book.
Hmm.
But he cites a study in that book that when talking about reciprocity, when you do something for someone else, there's something inside of them that makes them more than three times likely. Well, first of all, they're going to do something back in return for you, but they're going to give back in return something that's more than three times the value of what you just gave to them. So if I hold a door open for you, just to use that as an example, that's something very simple, right? Most people in the South, we're going to hold a door open for somebody. They're going to go through it. And this person who I just held this door open for, they're not only going to want to hold a door back open in return for me, but they're going to want to do something even above and beyond that.
Yeah.
They just feel the natural need to not just do something, eye for an eye, go and, what you just did, I'm going to repay it exactly. I'm going to repay it more than three times the value of what you just gave to me. So it's just a long answer just to say, just be good, be kind, and going back to reading just simple books like Dale Carnegie, How to Win
Yes.
Friends and Influence People. Just reading these simple books, you put all this out in the whatever you want to call it, the universe, the atmosphere, whatever it is. It's just a better way to live. People are going to want to do things back in return for you, and it's going to open up all these doors that you never knew existed. And for me, the way I got my real big start by knowing all these people, like the Tom Kroll.
Yeah.
How did I even get to know Tom Kroll in the beginning? How did I get on stage at his event when I didn't even know who he was? Did I go and ask him and or pay him to be on a stage? No. I offered to do something for him that a lot of people would I wouldn't ask him for anything in return. I was trying to give him value, and I did give him value. And he's like, "Hey, oh yeah, that Brian Trippe guy. Hey, I want to invite him on my stage." And my audience exploded because I was on his stage, but I wasn't trying to get on his stage. I was just offering something of value. So it just be kind is really
I
what it comes
love it.
down to.
I I believe it was Tom that told me once that we have a muscle or a bone, I think it's a muscle that we actually feel when somebody does something for us and it makes us want to do like what you're saying, it makes us want to do something back, and it's an actual muscle and it's a physical thing that happens, it's not just in our mind. It's really cool. Man, that's amazing. That's just so cool to hear you say this and to be on this call with you. It's unreal just because I've watched you grow, you know. Um, I do gotta ask, it sounds like at the beginning of all of this, you went in not looking like, a lot of people when they get started with real estate, they're looking at a flight of stairs and they're looking at the top stair when they're at the bottom and they're not worried about taking that first step. It sounds like you were just taking a step at a time. Do you feel like that quality had a lot to do with your success of just going after it and not overthinking?
Well, I think you definitely need to just go after it
Yeah.
and not give it. I mean, I don't want to say over. You don't. I don't want to. I don't think you need to overthink it, but you need to think. You need to give it thought. You
Yes.
need to be thoughtful. You need to take the next logical step
Mm-hmm.
versus kind of seeing the destination. Well, first of all, there's no such thing as a destination, right? Because once we think we see a destination, once we get there, whatever there is, once we get there, we can always see further, right?
Yeah.
Zig Ziglar said that. Once we get to our destination, well, it's not even, once we get to the top of the mountain, guess what? You can always see further, right?
Yeah.
So there's no such thing as a destination. So it's always just what's the next logical step forward for me and where I am. And you have to be an action taker. Like for me, when I very first started, I had to just get on the phones.
Yeah.
You had to. I had to start sitting. How else are you gonna? You got to TTP, right? You got to talk to
Yep.
people. You have to be contacting people. You have to get leads. Where are the leads going to come from? I want to find people who have a house for sale, right?
Yeah.
If I were starting right now and I had nothing and I know nothing, most of it, first of all, most of my phone's over there, but I'm going to pick up my phone. Most everybody has a phone, right? Hopefully, you got a smartphone and you got internet access. If you have a smartphone and internet access, you can make money in this business. And you can go to a lot of different lead sites. You can go to even a Zillow and find for sale by owners. You can find even listings. You got to be a little bit more careful with a listing because you're dealing with a realtor, but for sure for sale by owners.
Yeah.
You can, if you have a realtor buddy, you can get a list of expired listings. Anyone and everyone can drive around. I mean, if you don't have a lot of money, you probably got a lot of time. So if you got a lot of time, what should you be doing? I mean, I think the easiest way to get started in real estate is just to get out there and drive around, look for
Yeah.
houses that are obviously, abandoned or they obviously need work, and you can skip trace them. You can look up just type the address into the tax records and see who owns it. You can go to, True People Search or fastpeoplesearch.com and find phone numbers, start texting people, hey, is your house for sale? Just something really simple to get the conversation started off. And I mean, you have to take action. You have to do something. It's not just going to happen for you. Something you have to kind of make the engine go somehow. And in the beginning, it's going to be hard. In the beginning, you're going to have to hit the ground running and do a lot of the grassroots stuff. Because I don't even recommend, if you're brand new, I don't recommend you go out and buy leads
Yeah.
because you're terrible. In the beginning, you're terrible. You have
Right.
no idea what to even say. Why would you go buy good leads? You don't even know what to say to these people. If I were someone getting started, put your foot in your mouth. It's the only way to get better. You have to fail in order to move forward. You have to. There is a lot of that trial and error. I don't
Yeah.
even really believe in scripts. I mean, I think there's a good. I mean, I really like the conversation starter. Is your house for sale? Is your house still for sale? Like for a for sale by owner or an expired listing. If it's yes, get on the call them immediately. Don't keep texting them. Is your house for sale? Call them immediately. Hey, I'm
Yeah.
Brian. I buy houses. Just want to learn a little bit more about your house.
Yeah.
And just try to have conversations. I think well, thinking back to all the deals I did, the the best deals and the most profitable deals have always been the ones where I built the biggest and best relationship with the seller. So
Yeah.
how do you do that? You got to start conversations.
Yeah, just get on that phone. Don't be scared, right? I see it all the time, people posting in groups, like text message screenshots. What do I say next? What do I do? And I'm always like, get on the phone, call them. That's the next step. Um, so you're from Birmingham.
Yes, sir.
So when you first started, Alabama was probably a whole different market than it is now, right? Like today, like it's actually like people want to wholesale in Alabama. You probably the population wasn't probably as growing as it is now back then, right? I mean,
So Birmingham specifically has always been a rental market. I kind of,
okay,
and I don't even know if this is real, like real estate investor speak or real estate investor talk, but very early in my wholesaling days, I quickly kind of realize there are parts of Birmingham that these are rental areas. These are areas where someone wants to buy a house specifically to rent it out. You're going to get the highest rate of return, right?
yeah,
The highest rent for the dollar versus the kind of the retail areas or the areas that you're going to want to sell your house. You want to list it. You're going to want to flip in these areas. So you
yeah,
got rental areas and you got retail areas. And Birmingham's always been a hotbed for rental.
okay,
It's kind of like a C market. I equate it a lot to probably like a St. Louis, a Memphis, um, uh, a Hampton Roads area of Virginia.
yeah,
It's that kind of market where Cleveland, even Cincinnati, Columbus, Ohio, there's some of those Ohio markets where people are going there to get a good rate of return on
yeah,
a rental property.
okay,
So from the outset, I remember, back in the old days, it's so funny me saying that, and it still applies today. You want to build a buyer's list, go to the courthouse steps.
okay,
I mean, where are there more people buying with cash than at the courthouse steps? So I remember back in 2012, 2013, I'd go to the courthouse. They wouldn't have an auction every day, but it was about maybe 3 days a week. I'd go to the courthouse auction steps and I just observe in the beginning. I mean, I was faithful. People kind of I got to know people. They got to know me. And then I start coming with deals, start building buyers list. Now I got deals. I remember I sold, it might have been my second deal, my second or third or fourth deal, one of the really early ones. I found a buyer at the courthouse steps. I had a deal and I ended up making like 14,000. And this is, back in the days, I mean, you hear about these crazy wholesale fees now.
yeah,
I remember when I got started, you make $5,000 on a wholesale deal. You're doing good.
yeah,
But I mean, I remember making 14,000 on a wholesale deal in 2013, maybe 14, and it was a big deal. It was a big deal to do that because I wasn't spending any money on marketing. I was spending very, very little on marketing. But no, Birmingham as a whole, it's always been a rental market. And there's obviously some retail pockets, some retail areas, but people come to Birmingham for cash flow.
yeah.
We have one of the biggest turnkey real estate investment companies in the country that are right here in Birmingham. There's a few of them actually, but there's one really big one here, and they've a lot of folks are coming here for rental property for sure.
Yeah, man, that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing, in all these groups, it seems like Birmingham is a area that I see people posting contracts in a lot. So that's cool. Man, I really do appreciate you here. We're running out of time, but I would like to ask you, before we go. So, out of all the advice you can give somebody just getting started today, everybody's confused. They want to go virtual. They want to do their own backyard. They want big teams, small teams. What is the best advice you can give someone?
I mean, the best advice is something we probably already talked about. Is just you just got to do it. You just got to take action. I mean, that's the biggest thing. It's so easy to kind of get caught up in, there's the organizer, right? There's the person that wants to go get all the folders and all the pins and all the, make sure the website and get the thing like all like organized and stuff. Then you got the person who wants to go buy all the gadgets and the tools, get the big fancy CRM. I don't need the CRM today, but I'm going to grow into it, right? You don't need a $300 CRM, $300 a month CRM. You just don't. You don't. I mean, I used Excel. I probably used Excel for the first 3 or 4 years, and then I kind of upgraded to Podio, which I had someone build out a Podio for me, and it was like $600 a year. So even then, it's like that's like $50 a month. So I didn't use like a real robust CRM for years and years, and I don't even know if you need it. I mean, there's
Yeah.
things that do so many different things. But I think that we get distracted. We allow ourselves to get distracted. We get online, get on Facebook, these Facebook groups you mentioned. We start, watching YouTube, get deep down the rabbit hole in YouTube. Start these podcasts are everywhere. There's millions and millions of. When I got started, the number one real estate podcast, and I always tell them about this now because I'm really good friends with Joe McCall. The Real Estate Investing Mastery podcast, Joe McCall it was like there's a few, but it was like number one. And I was
Yeah.
just listening to it, faithful listener. And those are all good things. Everything I just mentioned, they're all good things, right? DealMachine, that's a great, great,
Yeah.
great app. Um, uh, there's so many things you can do, but there's so many, all those things are also can be big distractions.
Yes.
They can all be things that they're tricking you into thinking, making you believe that you're doing something, but you're not getting any closer to a check.
Yeah.
So, and Joe McCall, I'll give him credit for this, but I want to challenge you guys, anyone listening, never done a deal, talk to 5 new people a day. Okay. 5 brand new people a day. If you do that, you'll have a contract in a week. You'll have a deal done in less than a month. I mean, if you literally stick to that, I'm going to talk to 5 people who have a house for sale. I'm going to talk to Brand. I'm going to have 5 conversations today. That's it. 5. If you can commit to that for a whole month, you will do your first deal and it won't cost you that much money. You can do that probably for cheap or free.
Yeah.
So it's really just taking action, but not just taking action on things that will actually lead you to a deal. Now you're going to find out, you're going to make mistakes. It's going to happen. It has to happen. You're going to make mistakes. You need to make mistakes so that you can fail forward. So you know what to do, know what to not do, and know what to do for next time. But just go out there, make mistakes, stick your foot in your mouth, make a fool of yourself. And that way, that's the only way it's going to get you better and better and better and better and better.
Love it, man. I feel like you just dropped so much, even though you said it twice, just take action. Sometimes people need to hear it twice, you know what I mean? So I definitely appreciate you here, man, and the time you spent with me. Is there anything like how can people reach you? I know people's going to have questions. They're going to want to talk to you. I mean, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, I mean, anyone can, my name, Brian Trippe at gmail.com. Shoot me an email. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. You can find our YouTube channel. I run ALAREIA, the Alabama Real Estate Investor Association. So you can find us pretty much everywhere. I used to own a company called REI Live. There's a bunch of content for REI Live out there as well. So find me, shoot me a message if I can help you. Someone said this. This is Keith Ferrazzi, who wrote the greatest networking book ever written called Never Eat Alone. He said, if anyone asks me for anything and it takes me less than 5 minutes, I'll do it. Okay. So I just have taken that. If it takes you less than 5 minutes to do something for someone, you should probably do it. And so if there's anything I can help you with, you need a resource, hey, connect me with this person or this person, do it. And Travis, you're doing an awesome job right now because I remember when I first got started doing the whole podcasting thing, I didn't know anybody. Having a podcast is the greatest way to cold email or cold DM someone. Hey, will you come on my podcast?
Yeah.
It's awesome because most people love to talk about their favorite topic, which is
Yep.
themselves.
Yeah.
So you've done it awesome. And I encourage anyone out there, even if you don't know anything about real estate, starting a podcast is an awesome thing to start to get more people, start to grow your network.
Awesome, Brian. Thank you so much, man. You mean a lot to me, man. Just you saying those
Awesome.
words to me. I appreciate your inspiration, and you definitely inspire me, and I'm sure you inspire tons of other people. So before I go, we're running out of time, I know, but what can we expect from you in 2025?
Yeah, content. I was big in the content game when Gary Vee was preaching it, and Gary Vee was like my hero back in like 2014, 15, and 16. And I was pumping out content. We grew our YouTube channel huge, it's about as good as you could. But I was away from it for about 3 or 4 years. A lot of personal stuff happened in my life, and then obviously COVID kind of shut our live events down for a little while. I'm back at it. Content, content, content. We got our monthly events, relaunching the podcast, the actual like audio version. The video version's always been there, but the audio version we're relaunching. So just it's content, a lot of AI driven content. I'm really getting digging deep with AI, like a lot of people are. So you're gonna see a lot of content from me. If you don't know who I am, you're probably gonna see me in front of your face here very, very soon. So Travis, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for the kind words. Thank you, just for what you do. Just getting not just mine, but everyone's message out there that's a part of the real estate community, getting their message out there to the masses. So I appreciate what you do, man. If I can help you, please let me know because I want to make sure that you're successful in all that you do too.
Hey, thank you, man. Many blessings coming to you. So, everybody, right now, after this video, you need to search for Brian Trippe. You need to follow him. You need to watch for all of this content. And yeah, Brian, I hope to have you on back again in the future, man. It was good talking with you today.
Let's do it. Thanks, Travis.
All right, man. Thank you. You have a good one.